fuckheads and retards. Um, I know you all hate me. This is your alcoholic, chronically depressed, semi-retarded fuckhead of host National Communism 666. And I'm here to talk to you about something rather important. An epiphany. Yeah, I didn't even say that right. That I've had a awakening to some sort, in sorts I've had. And it's this, I've known all this, but it's just really dawned on me. America, the society that we have now that I don't like, obvious, that's, you know, duh. America is founded in a series of things, and all of that ultimately came out of the American Revolution. Now, the American Revolution was part of a series of revolutions, the beginning of a series of revolutions that took place throughout Europe. The big three following that was the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution. Now, this is hard to explain, but what really came out of that? What are the... Well, lots of things came out of it. There was a guy named Maximilius Robespierre, who was the leader of the French Revolution, who I at one time actually admired a great deal, and I still kind of admire him. He claimed to be this great fucking champion of the disenfranchised masses, of the people, and he did this, but in the end he ended up killing hundreds, arguably thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of them. That didn't last long. He himself died, so this was an abstract failure. And then comes Napoleon, his fucking reign of terror, and so on and so forth. In America, you got the displacement of the Native Americans, the invasion of America, and the driving out of the Native Americans from their own land, the enslavement of the blacks, so on and so forth. But what ultimately in Russia, you got the communists, Bolsheviks, communist domination of Russia, government in Russia, the Bolsheviks take over in Russia. They led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. They killed thousands of Slavs, people all over Russia. I think it was Ukraine or somewhere. They starved out some of the population. Stalin starved out some of the population. But the three main things that came from the American Revolution, the society is now based on, more or less, is this: Protestantism, Protestant Christianity, which replaced the Catholic faith, the Catholic religion, which is no fucking prize, let me tell you. You got the capitalist, which is basically the throwing off of responsibility. Sean Hannity once insulted the hippie movement in the 1960s as these privileged white teenagers throwing off their responsibilities. When in fact what you really had was a decade earlier in the 1950s, and in the 1960s, and then the 70s, and then in the 80s with Reagan, in fact, you had the rich upper elites, really their parental generation, as well as them, that really threw off the responsibility of giving a fuck about other people, giving a fuck about your community, giving a fuck about your race, or anything else, and it all becomes money, money, money. And it became a culture of gimme, 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 cultural or society climbing, class, trying to advance your own class, and to hell with the other guy, to hell with the little guy, to hell with nature, to hell with what's right and wrong. So that's capitalism. Then you got feminism, which creates a reg issue that did not ever exist before, that would have been thought ridiculous to exist before. Feminism, which creates this reg between men and women, and it takes away the man and it replaces it with a cold, iron-fisted state. So if they need help, they look to the state, and the state tells them and has this media that is ran publicly by CIA and the White House press, publicly ran. It's basically public propaganda, same as they had Nazi Germany and Soviet Union. This media will tell them, public propaganda, this media will tell them, it's not the rich people's fault. It's not the government's fault. It's not the fault of the capitalism, big industry, big business, the big corporate. It's not their fault. It's not the fault of the failed Protestant religion. It is the fault of the men. Blame men, attack men. Your own husband, he's your problem. Your son is your problem. Your children in general are your problem. The homeless man down the street is your problem. Attack men. That's what it says. So it shifts focus away from class warfare and turns it into this bizarre ass warfare that exists between the genders. And they do the same thing with race. It's no longer the rich whites that dominate the country. No, it becomes whites. So blacks focus on rights, and that shifts their attention away from the class war that's going on. Democracy, which is the preferred system of governance, because the people in charge of that government can hide behind the scenes and influence things in two ways. Through the media, which influences most of the people who are basically lemmings into voting for whoever they want you to fucking vote for. Then you have, second of all, you have finance. They will fund each political party financially. They will fund it, usually hiding behind grants, groups, special interests that they control and own. And they finance each political party. So they play both sides of the field. So yeah, they're smart enough to do that. They're running both sides of the street. And so that democracy is something they really like. Most people, again, they can easily influence most people, and most people don't have an ideal in the world what's going on. They can even wipe their own ass, most of these fuckers. And communism, which strives for impossible equality, because no one's equal in nature, no race is equal, no person's equal. Some people's faster, some people's stronger, some people's smarter. There's no equality anywhere in nature. So you have all these things that all came out of the revolution, the American Revolution, and I went way too long with this shit. And the Protestantism, the Protestant faith, was also one of them. And again, continuing on, getting to the point in a minute, the Protestants had what was called a Protestant work ethic, and they did not condemn usury and other exploitative practices. Some of the first child labor laws came out of the Catholic Church. They had no problem with Catholic labor, and they had what they call the Protestant work ethic, which was based on earn your bread by the sweat of your brow. Well, what they do is they turn that into work like a fucking dog so we don't have to. Work like a dog so the rich don't have to. And that's where Protestantism really comes from. And in part it came from King Henry, who wanted a divorce from his wife. While clearly you should be able to get a divorce if you want, it's none of any church's business or government to dictate who you can and cannot marry. The Catholic Church said no, no divorce means it's still good because it is equality. It's saying no exceptions. No one's above the law. What we've deemed the law, or what we've deemed right and wrong, what we've deemed sin, we will not make an exception. No divorce means no divorce. So he left that because of that, so that he, while maintaining these same laws for everyone else, he could get a divorce. So he became a Protestant because they allowed it. So that's Protestantism. And also you don't have dozens and dozens, and even in some cases hundreds, of saints, days celebrating saints. These days translate to less work time, more vacation time, time spent at home with family, time pursuing spiritual matters. So you said you're there working your ass off. And then you have the issue of Then you have the issue of monarchy. Back to what this is about. Monarchy, while I don't think we should have a full return of monarchy, two examples, interesting examples of monarchy. You've all heard of royal soldiers and King George, the evil King George. He was a dick, I grant you. These loyalist soldiers would go from house to house, plantation to plantation, win in war with the Americans, and they would free up slaves. You saw that in the Patriot movie, and they said, well, we're working here of our own will. I don't doubt that happened. But they would free up slaves often, and notice that they did not take these people to be slaves themselves. Instead, they freed them, because from an early point, the monarchy in England, and the English government, had basically just said, fuck slavery, this is not good, and they went on their own moral crusade to end slavery. Is 1930, 30-some years before we ended slavery, they had officially ended it, though it was rarely practiced long before that. And in fact, and this is England, and they were probably one of the more corrupt groups in my opinion, and they still are doing this. And it's reason that if Russia didn't have become king and they had become a monarchy, we would have ended slavery around 1930 something. So we would have had a 30-some year head jump on ending slavery. Much more importantly is Protestant groups in the United States were campaigning to maintain slavery, while the Catholic Church had been condemning slavery since the 1700s. While it's reason they never officially condemned it altogether, they basically said the enslavement of Christians should be not allowed. Christians should not be able to enslave other Christians. But the thing about this is, if you're a fucking black in America under Protestant rule, you were all Christians. Catholic or Protestant, you were all fucking Christians. So you're not exactly enslaving other fucking Christians. And that's the same ideal that they even did this after the fall of the Roman Empire, and late Roman Empire, after post-Constantine Roman Empire, late Roman Empire, they also did this, and that was part of what ended slavery then, led to the freeing of slaves. But Protestantism supported that, and then examples of how uncorrupt or less corrupt, and I know I'm gonna get shit for this, the monarchy and the Catholic Church and all these groups were that used to be the old order. To give you an example, actually I'm gonna continue this and then I'm gonna upload another one. I'll continue this in a minute. 6666.